Caitlin Clark come out and say what needed to be said. She stood on business and said, we need to play in games. And y'all that are signed to these other leagues that are compromised, stop playing with the people who are not. Stop playing games. Let's get to it.
Here's the latest shakeup. Kelsey Plum, the WNBA Players Association's first vice president, just drew a firm line in the ongoing contract talks. But the real drama, it came just hours earlier. Caitlin Clark, the league's brightest star, spoke out at USA Basketball Camp in North Carolina and said the exact opposite. Clark, widely regarded as the WNBA's most valuable player, urged both sides to compromise and emphasized that players need to be on the court this season. Plum fired back, expressing deep frustration and making it clear that negotiations are still light years away from a deal. Two top-tier stars, two completely different messages. And here's the twist. One of them has a stake in a rival league.
Plum's response is in this. This is crazy, man. Like, you're signed to Unrivaled. You got equity in Unrivaled. Like, y'all are somewhat compromised on the situation to a degree, even if you're it's just weird, man. It's a little weird. Y'all on the board, but y'all got equity in the competitor leagues. It's all a little conflict of interest. Conflict of interest. Here it says, Indiana Fever star Caitlin Clark said Friday that while WNBA players will fight for everything we deserve during their current round of collective bargaining agreement negotiations.
Watch closely. Clark wasn't speaking casually. On January 10th, 2025, at Duke University, she made it abundantly clear. Fans are starving for WNBA action, and both sides will need to compromise to reach a deal. This wasn't a throwaway comment in a routine interview. This was the league's crown jewel, the player who drew 3.2 million viewers to WNBA broadcasts last season, publicly putting pressure on her own union to get something done. She specifically signaled that players are now entering crunch time in these talks. In plain terms, the clock is ticking and an agreement needs to happen fast. Here's where it gets sticky. The WNBA and the Players Association have already pushed back the original deadline once, moving it to January 19th. That added 6 extra weeks beyond the December cutoff they first set, but half of that extension is already gone, and judging by what Plum has been saying, the sides are still far from finding common ground. That's a red flag when you've already used up half your safety net after missing the initial deadline.
An extension of the current CBA through January 9th, 2026, as both sides continue to work toward a new deal. But questions persist on whether both sides will come to an agreement by then, or even whether a work stoppage could be on the horizon. Now, this is what Kelsey Plum had to say. Kelsey Plum, first vice president of the WNBPA, said at Camp Friday that the talks have been a little disheartening. Just the frustration.
The league just rolled out its latest offer, a maximum 2026 salary starting at a guaranteed $1 million. Factor in projected revenue sharing, and elite players could see earnings top $1.2 million a year. The salary cap itself would jump to $5 million in 2026 and continue rising annually, linked directly to revenue growth. When you break down the numbers, this is a huge step forward. Today, the max salary is just $241,984, meaning top players could see their pay more than quadruple. But here's the catch. The union isn't satisfied. They're calling for a complete revamp of the entire salary system. That includes a new revenue sharing model, strict standards for team facilities and staffing, plus expanded benefits. These are the sticking points where negotiations keep falling apart. The league is ready to hand out $1 million paychecks, but to make it work, players would have to give up some of their current housing stipends and vehicle allowances. The union isn't willing to trade benefits. They want the full package, no compromises.
Players' priorities are transforming the league's salary structure and revenue sharing system, introducing standards for team facilities and staffing, and garnering more robust benefits. The league has said it wants to substantially increase players' salary and other cost commitments, while also incentivizing owners to continue to invest in operating the business and building sustained profitability. The most recently reported league proposal.
This is exactly where Caitlin Clark takes a different approach from the union strategy. She's not on the negotiating committee. Her Fever teammates Lexi Hull, Lexi Brown, and Aaliyah Boston handle the team's union representation, while Brianna Stewart serves as the union treasurer. Clark stays informed through them, but she isn't in the room making the calls. That distance gives her the freedom to speak openly in ways others can't. She knows there are battles worth fighting to the end, and there are areas where compromise is the smarter move. Here's how she framed it. Players should absolutely fight for every bit they've earned and deserve, but both sides must be willing to meet somewhere in the middle. This isn't backing down or showing weakness, it's strategy. Clark understands that demanding everything without flexibility risks ending up with nothing at all, and nothing means no season. No season means no games. No games means no spotlight, and without that spotlight, all the momentum built in 2024 could vanish in an instant.
That's what that line should have said. They are looking to capitalize off of Caitlin Clark, because if there was no Caitlin Clark in this league, they would have already agreed on a deal. Trust and believe, they wouldn't be doing all this hard negotiating and this and that if there was no Caitlin Clark that came in this league and brought the numbers, brought the viewership, brought everything. Simple as that. Simple as that. Here it says, what I'm proud of is that we play with a group of women that are united and we're standing on something, Plum said. Chicago Sky All-Star Angel Reese echoed that sentiment. I think everybody's really intentional about what we want. I think the players in WNBPA have done.
Here's what Clark sees that others seem to be missing. The WNBA just had its biggest year ever, and a huge part of that success came because of her. Fever game attendance skyrocketed. Viewership records shattered across the board. Merchandise flew off shelves. Corporate sponsors started lining up like never before. This wasn't a slow climb. It was the Caitlin Clark effect, and everyone in the basketball world knows it. Reports even hint at the league wanting to cash in on recent growth, but what they really mean is cash in on what Clark delivered throughout 2024. Moments like this don't last forever. If there's no 2025 season, casual fans who just discovered the WNBA will move on. The momentum evaporates. Here's the hard truth few are willing to say. Most players will never get another chance like this. This is a rare shot at life-changing money. Clark is warning her peers not to blow it by refusing to compromise. But Kelsey Plum isn't listening. She went on record insisting the players are united, standing firm on their principles. Angel Reese reinforced that, highlighting that everyone knows exactly what they want and is sticking together. That's classic union solidarity language, the kind you hear when both sides are digging in for a full-blown standoff.
24 #1 pick in women's basketball sensation has called this the biggest moment the WNBA has seen, making it all the more important that we find a way to play this next season. A work stoppage could emerge if the owners opt to lock out the players or the players opt to strike. I think there are different things that we can find ways to say no. We certainly deserve that, and we're not going to compromise on that. And there are other things we can probably compromise on. You want to understand both sides and be respectful of both sides, but at the end of the day, come to a compromise. Caitlin Clark is the...
Now let's address the huge elephant in the room that nobody wants to confront. Kelsey Plum is a co-founder of Unrivaled, the new 3-on-3 league launching in Miami this month. She owns equity in the league, signed a multi-million-dollar deal, and even sits on its board of directors. So when WNBA negotiations drag on and the possibility of no 2025 season looms larger, what's the natural outcome? Players will need an alternative platform to play, and conveniently, Unrivaled is ready and waiting. This is the textbook definition of a conflict of interest. Plum is supposed to represent 44 WNBA players, yet she personally benefits if talks collapse and players are forced to look elsewhere. She's not alone. Brianna Stewart, the union treasurer who's actively negotiating at the table, also co-founded Unrivaled and holds significant equity. Nafisa Collier is in the same boat. These are the very leaders shaping union strategy, and all have major financial stakes in a direct competitor to the WNBA. Caitlin Clark doesn't have any of that. She isn't tied to Unrivaled, Athletes Unlimited, or any other alternative league. Her entire earning potential depends on the WNBA's success. If the 2025 season is canceled, she loses a full year of her prime earnings. She can't just turn to another league with a guaranteed payday waiting. That's why her perspective is fundamentally different from the union leadership. She needs the WNBA to thrive, because for her, there's no plan B.
Clark at this point in time. Get down in the comments and let me know what you think. This is Keep the Vision. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe.
Here's where things stand as we head into crunch time. The hard deadline is January 19th, 2025, less than 2 weeks away, but talks actually need to conclude well before that to give teams enough time to prep for the season. Training camps traditionally start in April, and free agency usually kicks off in February. Without a deal by late January or early February, the entire 2025 season could be in serious jeopardy. Right now, reports indicate the two sides are still far apart. The union's leadership confirms this, but Caitlin Clark is taking a different approach. She's going public, urging compromise and emphasizing the need for both sides to find common ground. Clark frames this as the biggest moment in WNBA history, stressing that getting players on the court this season is absolutely critical. She's openly warning that a complete work stoppage could occur if owners lock out players, or if players strike, and she's actively working to prevent that scenario. Clark is positioning herself as the mature, strategic voice in these negotiations. Meanwhile, Kelsey Plum is taking the exact opposite path. She highlights how frustrating and disappointing the talks have been, and how far apart both sides remain. Plum is rallying players around the idea that they are unified and standing firm on core principles. That's the language you hear when people are preparing for an all-out showdown, not when they're looking to reach a compromise and move forward.